Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of Behind the Wheel? Behind the Steering Wheel? What do we call this stupid podcast?
Behind the scenes of Behind the Wheel.
Behind the Steering Wheel.
Behind the Steering Wheel.
With Victor and Eli.
Ely and Victor.
Ely and Victor.
Victor and Eli. What sounds better? Should go alphabetically, Ely and Victor.
I thought you were saying alpha, beta.
Alpha.
Order.
That's
And it would be Ely Victor.
That's up for, okay.
It's the same root, but
I'm willing to be the beta to your alpha.
Thank you.
No worries. But that's where it came from. Alpha, beta, alpha, beta.
Yeah, of course.
One that follows the other.
No,
it's so simple. I love it.
It just comes from the alphabet. Same root cause.
I'm really glad they didn't go like alpha, beta, gamma. That would have been a mouthful.
Yeah, it would have. Well, they kind of did that in Brave New World.
That's true, but they didn't call it alpha, beta, echo. What are they called? Yeah, they were echoes, right?
I think they were echoes, yeah. But the gammas were the third tier.
Yeah. Good old Greeks. What the Roman alphabet was called? Probably Latin.
Roman alphabet. Yeah, it was Latin.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
That makes sense.
And they copied a lot of the Greek letters is how it worked.
They're like, these guys have it down.
But I think our current alphabet is the Roman alphabet.
But the word is, actually most of Europe is based on the Latin alphabet.
Yeah.
And you have the interesting.
And then you have the Cyrillic, which was essentially a copy, but
They're like, we're going to do things differently.
for Slavic.
How much do you know about the Cyrillic language?
I could read it.
Oh, fantastic.
But that's about it. I mean, I lived in Macedonia, and they use the Cyrillic alphabet.
It's like one of the things I heard about it, it's kind of mind-blowing, is that they have, like, a letter can mean something different if it's capital. Is that true?
A letter can mean something
Like
different?
if a lowercase a and an uppercase a sound different, they mean something different, you know?
I don't know. I mean, that might be true in Russian.
Yeah.
I mean, in the version I learned, because they're slightly different.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same letter set, but, like, the Russians have some extra. So I never really learned Russian or how to read the Russian or what any of the words are. In Macedonian, it's just straight up, like, phonetic.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's a lot easier. And I like phonetic languages. They're just easier to read.
Yeah.
They almost all have exceptions, though, so maybe that's one of the exceptions. My Macedonian got to, like, 5%. Like, I could say a very few, like, simple sentences, and I could basically read the alphabet. And that was about it. Huh?
You wouldn't pick it up again?
Maybe, like, learning a Slavic language would be cool, because then you kind of speak. You kind of understand all of them.
Yeah, you have all the roots.
Because even Polish is Slavic, so you can kind of pick it up.
Because I heard Russian was actually particularly difficult to pick up, and this was from a Polish man. So if you can learn that language and find Russian difficult, they have to learn English.
Well, I think Polish and Russian are the furthest apart
Of all languages? Or just
of the Slavic languages. But I'm just talking BS. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Like, I just say stuff confidently. And then one of my work friends picked up on this, and she's like, you know what I realized about you? Like, I used to
know anything.
Yeah. Well, not that, but she's like, even if you don't know something, you really convinced me that you know it, right?
Even though I know I'm right, I still believe you. It's a force of personality. You could start a cult. No, wait.
Ironically, no, actually, it's really sad. I was actually thinking about that today.
Yeah.
I was like, what if I just decide to go all in on being a cult leader, right?
Yeah.
Like, how would I do it, and could I pull it off, right? And I'm like, problem with being a cult leader is you can't really, you gotta be extreme.
Yeah.
You can't compromise. You have to be 100%. Like,
ultimately, you can't be a cult leader and still be a good person. Just if you're known.
no, that's not true.
As in the way it is now, the way they wrote the book about it, as in the way they like Scientologists, like, I'm going to take advantage of people.
No, but like, if you're a good cult leader, it's still a full-time commitment.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, the term cult has so many negative connotations, right?
Yeah.
But you could be a good cult leader, but it just means you have to be 100% of the time good. You can't fake it, right?
That's true. It's like
you
being
can't
a celebrity.
compromise.
But worse.
Yeah.
Even in private, semi-private, like even if you're like behind closed doors and it's like 6 years.
See, celebrities aren't famous for being good, but if you're a cult leader, you have to be famous for being good, right? right?
Yeah.
Or bad, right?
What
But,
if
like,
you just become a cult leader and you're an asshole?
well, that's what a lot of them are like, actually.
Yeah,
But-
no, I mean,
but
like,
that's
that's
their-
your outward personality.
But I know,
It's
but
like-
that's how they become a cult leader. It's just on the force of their assholery, right? Like, I mean, that's why you get the, you know, sexually abusive cults.
Yeah.
That's exactly what those are. It's just one guy who's like, you know,
Just wants to know how
you have to follow me or you will burn in hell type of attitude, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you have to sleep with me, and you know, it's just a control thing. But like, even if you wanted to be like, because there's a lot of religious leaders, and maybe it's not good to call them cults, that are followed, like, you know, the Indian gurus and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they have to be like 100% of the time their persona. It has to be who they are. They can't really fake it because they'll get caught, right? They will.
And I guess it's so strong. It has to be so strong. It has to be such a big part of you. You do have to live it constantly.
Yeah.
So probably ultimately it does become you to a certain extent.
So like, if I wanted to, then this is what I mean. Like, let's say I wanted to be a cult leader, and I just wanted to be like, you know, it's all about prayer and service or whatever, right? But I can't do anything else. That's all I can do is prayer and service. And
That's why I make like a pyramid scheme. Eventually the two below you or the whatever, they would take care of it after a while, and then they would pass it down.
yeah, but if you're the founder at the top, like this is what I mean. There's no room for like hypocrisy.
No.
You
I
know?
mean, until you start getting away with it. Until you can start getting away with it.
I don't think you can ever get. I just
Once you
genuinely
get
don't.
powerful enough, the people will ignore what you're doing because either the ones below you, they have so much power, they're so invested, they'll ignore it, or they want to do the same thing as well, and then they will.
Yeah,
start
but see, then
to
it
trickle down.
becomes like, how do you get to that level without compromising,
Right,
and then
it's like
compromise
anything.
later, right?
You put the work in first, and then after it's kind of on its own momentum, then you can kind of step back and like, all right, I'm just going to enjoy my little horror, and then the work can continue.
I don't know. I think maybe in theory people think it can work that way. I don't think in practice it can work that way.
I mean, it's the same thing with work. Once you get to the level of like CEO, if you really do want to step back, you let the shareholders take advantage of it. You go golfing.
Yeah, that never happens.
It does happen.
No, CEOs are some of the most stressed out, overworked people in the whole
Of course, but
world.
that's why they go golfing.
Yeah, they go golfing on weekends, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean they're not working. I bet
No,
on
of
the
course.
golf course they take calls, like, you know,
Yeah,
it's like that's their only form of release, right?
it's true. Once you have the
But
the
I don't-
behemoth moving.
Yeah, I really don't think. I mean, even that example is a perfect classic example of like people's perception versus reality.
Yeah.
You don't get to compromise when you're a CEO. You don't get breaks. You don't get to like relax and be a.
$1 million idea. Well, no, probably not. It's going to be awful. But reality TV show revolving around CEOs. It's like The Crown, but for rich people. The modern day royalty.
I mean, if they'd let you, but the problem with CEOs is that they're running, you know, very competitive businesses, and they don't want their secrets shown. So
Well, yeah, obviously they like.
they don't
about
want
the-
anyone in those meetings, and they don't want, you know, their strategy being released to the public. But there was a reality TV show called Undercover CEO, which I thought was pretty fascinating.
Okay, that's close.
It's close, yeah, because basically I think it was like Wendy's or something like that, or the CEO of some like minimum wage job type of company went and worked the minimum wage job, like he was working in the drive-through thing, right?
Yeah.
Just to like really learn it, and then if he got caught, then they'd pull him out, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's a good way to kind of get to know your.
yeah, I
staff.
mean, and he was kind of a nice CEO, so he like really like learned a lot. And
Is he
made
the one running
changes.
the Wendy's Twitter? Is he
No,
funny?
I don't think he's. No, Wendy's did get good. I don't even know if it was Wendy's. It could have been any of those. I don't know why I said Wendy's.
Big old chains.
Yeah, definitely wasn't McDonald's though, because they're a large evil corporation.
As opposed to all the others.
Yeah, exactly. They're just medium evil corporations.
You know,
Google's not an evil corporation. They even say in their values that do no evil, right?
Oh, well,
That
no.
makes them good.
Oh, they
The
say
pure-
they're not evil.
Yeah, the pure arrogance. Jesus.
See no evil, hear no evil. That's the more important part. If you see it, ignore it.
I tell you, like, the elitism in Google drove me nuts.
Yeah, I can imagine. But the office space was nice.
I mean, it was a great job. I can't really complain. It was law to jumpstart my career, like, it was a great place to work, and at least they weren't like, at least they weren't trying to be, you know, greedy and money hungry.
Yeah.
It just happened naturally.
Is that better?
Huh?
Is that better? We weren't trying to sell our souls, but
it
it's
just
like,
kind of proves that it's not malicious. It's just a natural result of human nature, right? You know, it's just individuals making choices that are in their self-interest, and it's kind of the core of capitalism. But I don't agree that that's what makes capitalism work well.
I also don't agree that that's intrinsically human nature. I think that's what.
No, of course not. Well, like, you know that, you know, speaking of cults, our own cult that we're in, it's
C word.
Yeah. But, you know, our whole premise is that human nature is evil but shouldn't be.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the point.
Yeah.
Human nature isn't what it is now. We have attained something that is not.
But I think the point of capitalism is that, well, you have to work with what you got, right?
Yeah.
But you know, and this is an argument I really agree with. Capitalism is moral because what it does is it allows individuals to make their own choices.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's really an economic and social system based on free will.
Yeah.
And choice.
And it's kind of survival of the fittest, which is as pure as it gets sometimes.
Well, that's the part that people criticize, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is its weakness, actually, is that it's survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
And because people are selfish, then a lot of people get hurt.
But that ties into the whole, like, if there's any two ways to go about one that's inherently self-centered is going to win out, because it does favor the ambitious and the greedy to an extent.
Well, see,
even though it's more efficient to work as a whole, work for the.
Well, see, this is why I think capitalism actually doesn't work based on self-interest.
Yeah.
I think it works despite self-interest, or works more self-interest that is.
It survives the self-interest.
Well, like, I think actually what you just said there, I think, is the key.
Mm.
Actually, self-interest benefits from cooperation and thinking of others, and you know,
like, if everyone's working in everyone else's self-interest, it would be better for everyone overall. It's greater than the sum of their parts.
But I think that's why capitalism works.
Yeah.
I think capitalism works because there's kind of a kind of moral standard in society that we should help other people, and we should be considerate, and that you know, a lot of the desire, and that's why all these big tech companies have this kind of desire to help the world or make the world a better place, right?
Tax cuts, right?
Well, no, that's the self-interest part taken in, right? But
it's mutual self-interest.
That's because they literally outsource that to some, you know, company that's been doing that type of stuff for 50 to 100 years.
Yeah.
And they're literally just like lemmings with the way that people do accounting, right?
Yeah.
They just do what the guys before them did. They just follow all the international laws that allow for loopholes and stuff. I mean, it's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
But that is the hypocrisy, right? Like, you know, we're about making the world a better place, but, you know, obviously we want to minimize our tax burden.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, those people do actually believe what they're saying in terms of, yes, we do want to make the world a better place, but then when it comes down to it, it's like, oh well, we got to make some budget cuts here, we got to cut the corners here. Ultimately,
well, this is what I mean, and this is what I saw in Google, and this is what frustrates me so much about the capitalist philosophy versus the actual capitalism in practice. Is Google got to where it was by not thinking like a normal corporation, by just trying to solve a problem, and when they got a lot of money for doing that because they were really good at solving that problem, right? And they made the whole internet better, and they made a lot of businesses a lot of money, and they took a small cut, and they just became this massive powerhouse that was incredibly profitable. And their first thought when they got the founders' first thought when they got a whole chunk of money was, let's make a great working environment, right? Like, Google was the one that did this. They're like, rather than everyone just sitting in cubicles and being unhappy and miserable and forced to work and having some boss check their times, you know, we're all adults, let's trust each other, right? And let's and let's give people free food so they can eat at work, and let's give them cool things to play with so they can take breaks, and let's not manage their time. They're adults. Let's just let them do their work.
If we take care of them, they'll never want to leave.
Well, yeah, but that was.
I know it's a mutual self-interest again. It's like it's better.
But it wasn't. It wasn't the actual motivation.
No,
the motivation wasn't just to keep people there.
But it's
that's
a cycle.
That's what other people noticed when they did it. Is that we need to compete with Google because we need to keep the best employees, right?
Yeah, and
everyone wants to work at Google. Well, we need them, and then it became a competition, and everyone adopted it because it proved out. And this is my point about how capitalism really works. The ideas that win are the ones that actually benefit the most people.
Yeah, it just takes people a bit to realize that sometimes that.
Well, that's why it's so frustrating. Is the self-interest part of capitalism actually?
It does hinder it.
It hinders it.
Yeah.
Right. And this is what I mean. Then Google was like, suddenly their stock price doubled, and you had they were hiring more people, and they started bringing in all these people from other corporations, and the founders were like, this is boring now because all we do is sell ads. So we want to go do cool stuff, right? So they stepped back and they didn't really get involved in the management of the company. And
they went golfing.
One of the original,
I'm joking.
yeah, whatever. I don't even think those guys like to golf. They're really nerdy. The Google founders.
At that level, what do you do? Do you have would you buy your VR suite or something? Is regular just mouse and keyboard, console gaming, whatever, playing on your phone? Does it still hit the same spot once you're rich?
Well, I think
I need to buy a mansion and fill it with an entire land party.
Right? But a lot of people try stuff like that. That's what a lot of rich people do. I mean, you ever see MTV Cribs? That's what it's like.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do.
Yeah, but that would be selfish.
After all the philanthropy, I'd keep maybe 5-10% for myself.
Oh, sure you would.
If you have $1 million, and you have everything you need, and you're interested,
$1 million is not enough.
I mean, you have $1 million left over.
That's not enough. You spend that in a house.
I mean, after everything's said and done, you have the house paid off. You have the company is running itself. Your kids are all in college. Your wife is shopping.
All right, so you have all your savings. Yeah, okay. So you have $1 million to just splurge.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you start?
I mean, I know what I'd do with $1 million, but what would you do with $1 million?
Let's see. I would love to do the zero gravity trip. That would be cool. Because I would want to get all those cool experiences.
Oh, you mean where you fly into the stratosphere kind of thing?
The plane just goes high as possible and it just drops.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that the cost of the Virgin rocket?
Yeah, you could do both.
$1 million.
To do a zero gravity. Oh, Jesus.
No, I don't think it's zero gravity. I think he's going to go to the moon. They're booking him in now.
I do wonder what kind of criteria there is for that. Because you'd have to go through some kind of astronaut training. You couldn't be sorry, we can't get you in space, and you're now stuck because of your bum hip or something.
Well, I think it's a physical, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You'd have to do a physical.
Because you don't have to survive in space, but you'd still have to survive leaving the planet.
Yeah, well, so who knows what they're doing if they're actually taking people to the moon and you do a little walk around. We just fly around it or something.
They're just going to...
or the space station.
Just having lunch with the aliens. They're like, we haven't seen you guys since the 60s. What's going on? We miss you guys. We just see you passing by going to Mars. You don't even say hi. What's up with that?
Yeah.
Baked you a cake and everything. It's made of small.
Are you talking from the aliens' perspective or ours?
The aliens.
Oh. We haven't even managed to get back to the moon. How are we supposed to go visit aliens?
They're on the moon, that's what I'm saying.
Oh. Why would they be on the moon? There's nothing on the moon.
Because they've been watching us. And they were like, you left the planet, congratulations. Here's a cake. You guys can eat gravity, right?
You think they'd prefer to visit the space station?
No, that's too visible.
I used to
hide behind the moon.
As to kind of while I was working, there's an ISS live stream, International Space Station live stream. So I used to have it just up on one of my monitors.
Is it of the ISS, of the view of the Earth? Or
yes,
is it
from the ISS.
Okay, that makes more
sense.
sense.
You get to see because they go through the dark side.
Yeah.
So you only see it for half the time, and then they're flying over the Earth, and you can see what the Earth looks like from the ISS.
Sweet.
It's like a down-facing camera, so you can just see Africa, but mostly clouds, right? But then Africa, you can usually see pretty well because there's not as many clouds. I loved it.
You can't actually see the Great Wall of China from space, can you? That was one of the
I
big
don't think
myths.
so. No.
It's so big you can see it from space, and then we went to space. It's like, turns out that's not true.
I think you can see it if you have the right, like always, the right equipment for space.
I mean,
like
you can see your house from space if you have the right equipment. That doesn't mean anything anymore.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's
But I think what they meant
not
is
too good. They produce all the majesty.
I think large satellite images, like our first satellite images, could pick up the Great Wall of China, but it couldn't pick up houses or other buildings, right?
Okay.
You could pick up like cities, but just in a kind of very
Sweet.
So I think that's why they said that. But I think the point is, if you're just sitting in a space station with the naked eye, you can't really see it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But it's hard to tell because it's always cloudy on that view. Like you don't actually see so much land or water. We see a lot of water actually, obviously.
Yeah, there's lots of layers to it.
You can kind of see islands as well.
What if they have like, I don't know what the word, spectrographic analysis, whatever way they could visually, it could just cut through clouds without, I don't know, like not thermal imaging because then you wouldn't see it anyway. I'm sure there's all sorts of
Just remove the cloud cover.
Yeah. Just to get cool photos, spend millions on tech just to get cool photos of Earth at any time of the day.
Well, they get pretty cool photos anyway.
Yeah.
But it's not stuff you can see from the space station cameras, right?
No.
But it's just interesting because it's just like this is a live feed of a satellite flying over Earth. Like it's pretty cool.
It's really humbling.
Yeah, it's great perspective. One of the best things though is the sunrise, because you're going on the dark side of the Earth, and then you're coming back to the bright side, so you actually see like a sunrise.
And then the circle of life starts playing in the background.
Yes, exactly.
It's beautiful.
But it's a weird sunrise because everything is black, like you don't see the Earth at all. And then suddenly you start to see like corners of the Earth, and then it like starts to illuminate the Earth, but from you looking above it. It's just kind of surreal.
That is
It's like, definitely worth
checking out.
checking out. Yeah,
That's literally a god's eye view. You're like, I'm just gonna look down, and that's what he must see all the time.
Yes.
Unless he is. Anyway.
That's it. He sees all views.
Yeah. How? I mean, obviously we can't even conceive of that, but like, how? Do you think he's stressed? God.
Stressed?
Yeah, like imagine if you had to manage 2 kids, which you do constantly. How stressful is that? You're like, oh God, I wish I had eyes in the back of my head. What if you literally had all the eyes in the earth to look through at any given time, and you wanted to check?
Well, I think God's stressed because of the reasons that we.
Oh, of course, he's stressed for other reasons.
I don't think he's stressed just managing the natural flow. Yeah, I think he just put it in motion and let it go.
Yeah.
Like a good CEO should do.
Does that mean there are? Yeah, that's the thing. Is he more of an active or passive observer of any given moment? Like, do you think omniscience is he knows what's happening at any given time, or he could know if he focuses on it at any given time?
So my interpretation of omniscience is he knows everything that's happening right now.
Yeah.
So he knows, and this is why I don't believe in determinism, because determinism says that everything is predetermined. Like, it's just a matter of knowing it, right?
Which is ultimately fatalistic and kind of disappointing if that's the case.
So, but the idea that everything has the same result if you know what's happening now, I think God put enough randomness and...
Oh, that's why we're here, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're chaos.
So I think the way it works is everything physical, I think God knows.
There's a natural order to things.
Yeah, he can predict the future of how things will move and go. I think what makes free will possible is that he knows all the options before people, but he doesn't know which ones they'll go down.
Yeah, and you can generally predict someone based on pattern analysis.
Yeah, but I genuinely think God doesn't know what people will do for sure. Yeah. He has some inkling, and he can predict to a certain amount in the future, but when you have infinite possibilities into the future,
timed by everyone on Earth at any given moment,
then I think he doesn't actually always know exactly what will happen.
Yeah, and he likes that.
I think, no, I think that's by design.
Yeah, imagine if you were like,
well, this is why the Dune
existed.
series is so cool.
Yeah,
and my favorite one is the third one, because that's exactly what it's about.
I didn't even know there was other Dune books until recently.
Yeah, they kind of get ridiculous. I'd say the fourth one is, I think, the first one was a classic and it is amazing just because it's the first of its kind.
Yeah.
The second one is like a bridge book to the third one,
Okay.
and it goes in a completely different direction. It kind of catches you by surprise. It kind of takes everything from the first book and is like, actually, that's not the real point. And then the third book is a massive philosophy book, right? It's just like, it's just fascinating, and that's why it's my favorite.
Yeah.
Because it's actually this point that we're talking about now,
Okay.
about omniscience and about creating a world where omniscience is not actually possible, which makes it kind of, not to give too much away, right? But I really like the way it was written and the philosophy behind it.
That sounds cool.
And then the fourth and the fifth one just kind of goes back to, like, standard sci-fi action with some weird concepts and ideas, but not
all that stuff that wasn't the point. Turns out it is. We'll just go back to that.
no because I guess the reason I like the third book is he succeeds.
Yeah.
And so then everything that comes after is...
So you mean the author succeeds or the character succeeds?
The character succeeds.
Okay.
So because the character succeeds, he's kind of proven his point.
Nice.
And then nothing else really matters in the sense that now there's no destiny, there's no omniscience possible.
That does sound boring.
And so, well, no, it sounds great, but it just means then...
I mean, ultimately, like, that means eventually there would be nothing new, right? You can
No.
predict everything.
Oh, you mean if omniscience was possible?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I missed your point.
Yeah, no,
It was the other thing. No, okay,
he succeeded
cool.
by
Yeah,
making omniscience impossible.
He broke the cycle.
Broke the cycle.
I see. Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Nice.
So because he broke the cycle,
that's actually a common theme in a lot of games and a lot of movies, and
What?
that I've noticed a pattern of just like, we're trapped in a cycle of destruction or whatever, and then there's one like ultimate dark overlord is like, I want to control everything. And it's like, no, freedom must win out, freedom and love.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's like, but you might destroy yourself. Yeah, maybe, but that's our choice.
yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, that's
You have to be free to live.
that brings us back to COVID, people.
Yeah.
Like how bad does it have to get before you're allowed to force people to behave in ways they don't want to, right?
That is ironically the ultimate expression of American libertarianism. What do you call it?
Libertarianism?
Libertarianism. Yeah.
Oh, the libertarians are like, like if you don't want us to wear a mask, explain to us why we shouldn't.
Yeah.
And
But
make the
it's-
argument, but as soon as you try to force us, F you, right?
Yeah.
That's...
And I agree with that, but that is sadly how it is. Like, you have to trust everyone can be an adult, even the ones who act like children.
Well, so
It's
the thing so here's a good example of why it's really dangerous to do what governors try to do. And first of all, they're all hypocrites. They can't even follow their own laws, which just shows how stupid it is. But the media especially, right? The media latches on to this is to save people. And so they push that narrative, right? And so, for example, on Twitter yesterday, one of these CNN anchors tweeted this story about a 27-year-old ER nurse that died. It's making me really angry because he was obviously his motivation is clear, right? He's saying a 27-year-old ER nurse died. So one, people need to take the virus seriously, right? That's his message he wants to give, because even a 27-year-old person can die. It's even more tragic. Like, he's emphasizing the point because they're an ER nurse, right? So they're trying to help people, and then they died because they were trying to help people, right? And by mentioning a young woman who's 27, it shows that it shows that anyone can get it, anyone can die from it, right? So it's reinforcing this narrative.
Nobody's safe.
Yeah, that nobody's safe, that everyone should take it seriously, everyone should be careful, everyone should be willing to sacrifice to save lives, right? You read the story, 2 years ago she nearly died from like some kind of diabetic shock. And I was just so angry because I was like, the responsible way to report that story is to educate people who are high risk not to work and encourage them to find support, right? This girl should not have been working. She should have been bunkering up, not going near people, right?
I mean, unless it was her choice, unless she knew fully well what she's doing, that's fine.
Yeah, but then it's not. But then
she
she took a super risk and she died from it, right?
Yeah.
And that's not
the point.
That's not the reason he was putting it out. And even if that's what happened, that should be used as a precautionary tale to other people that have those high risks, that you really know what you're risking, right? But instead, and this is kind of why, like, I'm almost angry at the media. It's like they just simplify everything in a way that's not nuanced. So it's like ER people good, go out, serve us, thank you, right? Everyone else, lock down, wear masks. And it's just so oversimplified, and then in the end, when you oversimplify something this complex and deadly, you're not helping.
No, it's kind of patronizing, honestly.
Yeah, so you're not helping, because then people who are less at risk, that should be working, so that you balance the amount of people, suffering from COVID versus the amount of people suffering from economic collapse, right?
Yeah.
But no one thinks that way. Like, no one's like, we have to balance these two things. They're just like, oh, no. This is the worst thing. Everyone is in the same situation. And that's why libertarians and individuals are like, when the government does it or the media does it, they'll botch it.
Yeah.
It's too hard a hand, right? They put everything in one bucket and slap it. And that's much more dangerous than just trying to educate people on an individual level and tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, right? Now, I think people should wear masks, right?
Yeah.
I think the evidence is pretty strong.
It's not even that much of a sacrifice.
I know.
It's so easy.
It's so easy. It's so simple. And the thing is, then, you could just apply social pressure, and businesses themselves could, I've finally seen signs here that say, no mask, no service. That's easy.
Yeah.
Right? And so people wear masks when they go into shops, right?
Well, there's like a pandemic of people not doing that in America and getting upset and causing a big fuss about it.
But part of the reason for it, and actually most people still wear masks.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's still like 99.9%.
No,
it's always that vocal minority.
It's like 60%. It's not.
Really? 40% of people don't wear masks?
Well, especially when you have...
In private. But then, okay, how many people don't wear a mask and then still demand service and cause a ruckus when they don't get it?
That's a small minority.
That's what I'm talking about. Sorry.
But my point is just that if you didn't force it, you'd get more compliance. That's the ironic thing. If you're just like, if it was just social pressure with no government mandates.
Yeah, people would eventually
be businesses themselves were just like, you know what, wear a mask. It's better to be safe than to be sorry, right? Like, even that people would relate to and be like, all right, whatever, I'll wear a mask.
Yeah.
But when you start saying it's the law and we'll fine you, then they're like, hell no.
You're drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah, you're drawing a line in the sand. And if you're going to draw a line in the sand, you better have, like, amazing evidence and be able to prove it. And no one ever bothers to do that, right? Yeah. And look, there's good evidence. The other problem with evidence is, there'll always be counter evidence. And, especially with the masks, that in March, the governments were saying not to wear masks.
Yeah, there's enough confusion.
Yeah, so it's like, you pass these laws and everyone's just like, we don't believe you.
Yeah.
So why not just be like, look, it makes sense.
Their right. Absolutely.
It is their right.
Except it's impacting other people's actual health.
Well, so that's the argument, right? It's their right because it's their individual choice, but at the same time, if it makes other people die, is it really their right?
That's the other half of having your rights, having your freedom. That then gives you ingrained responsibility. If you're going to exercise your rights, you should exercise your responsibility to your fellow man of that country, rather than, it's all about me and what I want. That's not the case, or it shouldn't be. It's like, yes, you should be free to do what you want. Everyone else is free to not be infected by your bad decisions.
Yeah, and I think in this case, that's kind of why I was fine with the lockdown at the beginning, because it was like, there's not enough time, and if we don't lock down, then there's going to be a massive spike, and the hospital systems will be overloaded, and the people that were at risk didn't have time to bunker down. So you do a quick lockdown, and I've always said it should have been about 6 to 8 weeks. And then you protect people that are high risk, and you educate people, and you give them good advice and guidelines, and you monitor it, right? And as long as the hospitals are able to handle the influx and people are protecting themselves, then you can manage. And I don't think the death rates would have been any higher.
Do you think that the how do I want to put this? So, for example, the way the United States works, right, is that any states are autonomous for a lot of things.
Yes. Yeah. Well, some things are federal and some things are state level.
Yeah. But something like mandated masks, for example, that would be state level, unless it came from the top.
Well, then it becomes a question: is the federal government allowed to pass a mask mandate?
So, do you think the state system, is that what it's called? Well, the individual states?
Well, it's called a federalist system.
Federalist system, thank you.
Because it's like Switzerland is a federalist system. It's called a canton, is independent in how they kind of make their laws and stuff.
Do you think the federal system in this case helped or hindered the way America responded to the COVID pandemic?
Well, it's hard to say because all countries kind of try different things, and no country has really proven out.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out why America had objectively such a bad response overall.
Did they though?
I mean,
that's the question. Did they actually have a bad response? Are their stats worse? The UK stats are worse than the US.
I think that's mostly London though, because London is
well, it's
just
mostly
dense.
New York.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, London also had a bad response, in my opinion.
Well, yes, because they were opting for the they lost about a week because they were considering the herd immunity strategy.
Yeah, but I mean,
which I don't think is a terrible strategy, except there wasn't enough time to prepare for it.
No.
And so that's why you still need a 6 to 8 week lockdown in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you go for herd immunity strategy. And especially in your biggest cities, it's much harder to control for that, right?
Yeah.
But I don't see any country doing anything amazing. I mean, even New Zealand, I'm not impressed by because they're just holding it at bay, and they've killed their tourism industry, and they're starting to kind of arrest people now if they don't follow quarantine, and they have the advantage of being an island in the middle of an ocean that no one can get to, right?
Yeah.
And a low, sparse population anyway. They don't have massive major cities.
Yeah, that is, again, I wasn't, throwing stones or anything. I was just curious because if, for example, there was something from the top that said, look, please do this, any state governor...
So let's put it this way. Yeah. Zombie apocalypse, as in the movies.
Well, America would handle that a lot better. They got tons of guns.
Yes, but at the same time, it would be very hard to implement a national response, right? But what America should have done if they could have had a better national response.
Yeah.
Because a good national response is when the CDC, which is a federal organization, gives good guidelines, produces good testing regimens, and basically tells the states exactly what they should do. It outlines a plan that the states can follow. So that's still possible in the federalist system. The problem is when you don't have that, which you didn't, because it was disorganized, and that was the biggest failure. Then the states all do different things, and then you have a kind of weird, uneven response. But the truth is
that's kind of my point. Like with all the state governors essentially autonomous, there's less unified action there. Or less call for it. It's like, I'm going to do my thing, you do your thing.
But it's same in Europe, right? Every country did their own thing.
Yeah. But they had the European Union, which, if, for example, is it the same?
What is the European Union?
I don't know. Are they equivalent? Or are they...
So they're less equivalent.
Yeah.
The countries in Europe have more autonomy than the states. But it's somewhat comparable.
Okay.
But that's what the individual states in Europe are afraid of.
Yeah.
They don't want a federalist super state.
Understandably.
Yeah, understand it. So,
it's like, was it Norway and Sweden essentially handled it very differently, got very different results as well, and
originally they got very different results, and in the end it's kind of evening out, right? Because Sweden was just like, you know what, we'll go for herd immunity and we'll educate people to stay away from each other and to wear masks. Or they didn't even wear masks. They don't even wear masks in Denmark. It's just social distancing and creating separate social units, right? And Sweden got really hit hard in the beginning because they didn't do a lockdown, which I still think they should have done. I think they could have done just a 6 to 8 week lockdown. But the problem is, and this is what I'm realizing now, psychologically you do a lockdown because you're saying it's to protect people, and then you stop doing a lockdown and cases go back up. People are like, oh, let's lock down again. And also cases like the one I talked about where you have, a super high risk individual that wants to work and I guess doesn't quite realize that they shouldn't.
Maybe that's the thing. There are a lot of people who are higher risk where they decide, look, I need to do this. Someone needs to do it. Someone needs to step up. So ultimately you get a situation that is just like every other situation where the selfless will handle what the selfish have wrought. They're like, I'm going to take care of myself. As like the selfless people will be like, fine, I'll pick it up. I mean, you're in a better position to take care of it. You're 19 and healthy, but if you're not going to do it, someone's got to do it. that's every situation.
Yeah, but that's why I mean, like, the lockdowns aren't healthy because, you know, everyone just stays home, and then
they favor the lazy.
and then the jobs that need to get done are kind of high stress, right?
Yeah.
You know, like teachers as well. Like, no teacher should be going into in-person classrooms if they are obese and if they have, you know, any kind of lung conditions or any kind of...
We have the tools to learn online. It's not ideal, but if you can save lives...
Yes,
ultimately.
but it's really, like...